Yay, you did it! All those rehearsals, lessons, competitions, hours of practice, you even survived your final recital. You are now ready to enter the real world of professional music making and are fully equipped to ace any audition. So surely your dream job is just around the corner. Of course, this is unfortunately not the reality for the majority of music grads. Bar a select few who make it straight into full-time positions out of school, our paths are not quite so linear. Music school gives us the luxury of time to really concentrate on our practice and improve our skills on our instruments. But it's not always so apparent how our lives will change once we are out of school. In this video, I will share some tips for preparing for life after music school. Hey guys, welcome to this video. My name is Yao Cong and I'm a professional musician based in Singapore. On my channel, I will share my experiences and discuss topics regarding being a freelancer, musician and educator. Hopefully this will help you navigate your own career paths, so do subscribe if you are interested in these topics and have not done so yet. One of the first things that I realized after leaving school was that other than a few narrow areas of expertise, your undergrad degree has very little influence on your career path and success. The good news for music grads is that traditional safe degrees are no longer quite as safe. As the world keeps changing, things are moving so fast for any field or career path to remain stable over our lifetimes. By following the tougher route in choosing music, this would have already conditioned you to be a lot more creative and flexible than others who perhaps chose something safer. That said, this is by no means an easy path and it will likely be filled with many ups and downs and also possibly constant rejection. There is no one set way to follow and it's very important for us to forge our own paths, balancing between satisfying our musical needs and also our financial commitments, or as some would call it, adulting. While this might all seem very scary, it's actually not as bad, and I did find that transition quite exciting. I was very happy to leave the bubble that was music school, and here are some of the things that I did or discovered shortly after graduation. The first thing you'll notice is that suddenly your life is not quite as structured and routine anymore. Being in school, we are conditioned to a certain fixed schedule, the various orchestra, ensemble rehearsals, classes to attend, and then fitting in our own chamber rehearsals and practice. While this can be slightly overwhelming at times, as students we get used to this breakneck pace and intense schedule. I think the majority of us thrive in having so much to do. However, once school is over, we have to adjust to a schedule that is quite a bit freer. Some of us get quite unnerved with the free time, especially at the start, but I think this is okay and it's probably a good moment to take some time off. You have been in school for several years now, playing 6 to 8 hours a day, and it's quite possible you might be a bit burnt out, especially after our final recital, so make sure to recover from that. In fact, it's perfectly normal to start your career slowly. Don't feel the need to rush into things and worry that you don't have a packed schedule right from the start. This is very common. I know there are some musicians whose careers take off while they are still in school, but just like winning orchestra jobs, this is unfortunately not the norm. It's also at this point where a lot of musicians start to question ourselves and doubt ourselves about what we want to do with our lives, and we can often feel quite lost. Make sure to reach out to people you trust, perhaps some of your peers or mentors. Seek out their advice and talk through these feelings. I think it's very important to gain some outside perspective, though be careful with who you talk to. In my experience, sometimes friends and family outside the industry might not necessarily be the best advisors in this case because they can't quite understand what we go through. This is the point where a lot of people either give up or end up signing up for another degree or course in the hope that this will give them a more immediate impact on their career, essentially to fill up the empty void that school used to occupy. My advice is to really evaluate your situation carefully and honestly, but make sure to give yourself some time for things to happen. I'm also very happy to hear you out should you feel you need someone to talk to, so do reach out either in the comments below or you can DM me on Instagram. Here are some helpful questions to ask yourself if you feel lost. Why did you decide to study music originally? What aspect about music making do you enjoy the most? Is it like performing or working with others? Is it teaching? Is it working with certain groups of people? What other skills have you picked up in school apart from playing an instrument? Any other hobbies you like? These questions are ideally things you start thinking about perhaps during your final year of studying. Maybe you really like taking photos of your friends performing, and that could be something you do alongside your own music making. Or perhaps you enjoy sound engineering and can help record your friends, which could then develop into a side business. Maybe it's building websites or designing posters or being really good at organizing and managing events. These are all hobbies that have endless possibilities, and the more creative you are in developing all these skills, not only do you have something that's outside of music, the more work you end up creating for yourself. In fact, there are so many jobs in our industry that might not be just playing your instrument, but they still help build your network, which in turn benefits your performance career. I found a helpful website listing all the possible work you can do with a music degree, and I'll leave the link in the description box below, so do check that out if you are looking to brainstorm some ideas. Of course, the opposite might also be true, and you may decide that a life full-time in music is just not for you. There's honestly no shame in this, and sometimes we have to go through school to learn this, and it's important to always be honest with ourselves. My only advice regarding this is to ideally not leave this too late. Always be reflecting and considering these things even when you are studying. It really helps a lot if you figure this out earlier so that there's some time to react and prepare for this. The second thing that's quite immediately apparent once you leave school is that you are very much in the driver's seat of your life. What repertoire to choose, who to play with, these are no longer decided by your teacher or school orchestra. You also realize that you'll be fine without music lessons every week. Once you adjust to this, it's actually great that you have this control and are not working on 1,000 things simultaneously like in school. This freedom to explore what works for you can be quite liberating, but you will also learn quite quickly that the many opportunities to perform during school time will no longer magically appear anymore. At this point, I think it's very important to set new goals for yourself every few months. You have almost no commitments at this stage in your life, and the beauty of this is that you can literally pursue anything you wish. Setting yourself smart, achievable targets help you figure out what it is you truly want and probably also what the market needs. Commit to doing one thing each day that's beneficial to your career. This might be reaching out to another musician or writing a proposal for a project you have in mind. Even if it's slightly unusual, this is probably the best time to do it. Achieving these baby steps help you keep your career moving forward and your morale high. Think about it this way. In school, we follow a standard path and have to do whatever we are told. It gives us many skills we need in our careers, but it doesn't mean everyone has a prescribed path and we have to exactly follow the footsteps of those before us. It took me a while to find the perfect balance of work in my life, and learning how to say no to certain things. It's often normal to also get very busy and you will run out of time to practice. Make sure to develop your own practice routine and commit to it. Remember, what works for me or for another musician might not work for you because we are all different. Trust your instincts, only you know what you are passionate about, and don't be afraid to rebalance your work or time when necessary. The third thing that I remember doing after I finished my studies and returning to Singapore was to reach out to different people in the industry, or as some would call it, networking. This is a slightly contentious topic, so I want to be very careful with this. Let me be clear, I'm not asking you to suck up or try to be something you are not in the hopes of people offering you work. I think that is the worst way to go because networking like that is not authentic. Everyone can see through what you are doing, even the people around you, so don't approach it that way. That said, networking is very important in our industry because a lot of work happens through a collaborative process. It's common for people with different talents and abilities to come together for many projects to happen. So having a strong network of people you know and are able to work with is often vital in our career success. Because I did not study locally and I was trying to establish my career here, I committed time to meeting someone new every week. This was not something that I was immediately comfortable with, to be honest, but I knew it was important for two things. First, to get to know more musicians and gain more insight on the local music industry, and secondly, to also overcome my fear of meeting strangers. I started with people who I lost touch with from my school days and slowly met new friends of friends. I did not approach this from a please give me work point of view. I genuinely wanted to get to know them, their struggles, and also what everyone is doing. I also remember emailing all the hotels, asking them if they needed live music, and set up a few meetings with a couple of those managers. While that all came to nothing, it really helped me understand the scene a lot more and to expand my network. In fact, I think the best way to approach networking is actually from our school days. Pay attention to the musicians you like to work and collaborate with, but remember, don't try to be someone you are not, and don't worry about whether everyone likes you. Always be professional in school and make sure you are prepared and on time for all the different rehearsals and commitments you have. A lot of young musicians make the mistake of only focusing on playing well for outside gigs when it's paid, hoping to impress whoever books you but neglecting the work that's unpaid, perhaps in school or not as important. This can really come back to bite you because firstly, you never know who is watching you during your unimportant work, and secondly, your peers are actually the biggest source of work after graduation. They will be the next generation of managers and music educators, and they will remember how you behave in school. So make sure you are constantly doing your best, and I believe that is the true mark of a professional. The fourth thing that I think is very important in preparing for life after music school is to be smart about money, as this is one of the main factors that cause many musicians to leave our industry if not managed properly. As music students, all we want to do is get better at playing our instruments, and we often don't consider about all the other aspects of our careers, especially the financial considerations. Let me be totally honest with you, if you are not able to make enough money to survive after leaving music school, it almost doesn't matter how well you play, as you won't last very long in the industry. Remember what I said earlier about us needing to have time for our music careers to take off? This is essentially having enough money to survive. There are a few ways to help with this. If you are still in school, do take advantage of any business or music admin type of class. I know many of us hate to think about these things in school, but trust me, these classes might just save your career. I know mine certainly helped. Outside of my principal study lessons, the two most impactful classes that for me in Guildhall were the improvisation classes and the music admin class I did in my final year. Learning how to sell your services and promoting yourself, understanding budgeting, starting a teaching practice, all these skills are very important in the survival in the real world. So do sign up for this if you have a chance. The other important financial skill to pick up is to start tracking your expenses and knowing how much money you need each month to survive. Ideally, do this even when you're still in school. I did an earlier video about the money tips I learned, and I don't want to go too in depth here, so do check that out if you haven't seen it. But in short, knowing your expenses will give you an idea of the minimum amount you need to survive and let you know how much time you can give yourself in making your music career work, especially in the early days. I also like to mention here that in my opinion, it's perfectly okay to take on work that's not directly related to music. I know some people seem to shun this option because it somehow doesn't fit into the artist narrative or perfect music career, and they worry too much about what other people might think. Personally, I think it's brave and at times necessary for musicians to take this step. If that's the thing to keep you going and gives you the platform and financial stability to perform and have a music career, honestly, why not? Especially at the start of our careers, we sometimes just need a bit of this to get us going. These experiences will toughen us, which also means we have more to offer creatively and sometimes more motivation in our music. Being too idealistic can hurt you instead, and I do see people dropping out of our industry because of this. Of course, taking on too much intense full-time work might not work too, as that would mean not leaving any time for your music. This is definitely something where you must find your own balance, but I think generally, be open to all the possibilities that come your way. Lastly, I think it's very important to always stay connected, and by that I do mean having an online presence. If you don't keep your name and talents out there, no one would think of you even if there's a project that suits you. I do see the pitfalls of social media, but I think it's very important as musicians to build and maintain an online profile through school and beyond. Unless of course you are already incredibly successful and have like work lined up for the next couple of years, then I guess you can do whatever you want. But jokes aside, I think learning how to use social media to our advantage is actually very, very important in our current times. We live in a digital world and everyone is participating in it, and I don't mean just your friends or peers. This extended network of people includes potential collaborators and prospective clients. We all probably know someone who doesn't play particularly well, but is able to market themselves online and because of that have incredible success in their careers. Musicians like to slam some of this effort, and while I do understand where we are coming from and I do engage in this some of the time, I think it's important for us to recognize why they are successful and to learn from them. If you're not comfortable sharing your personal life online, I think it's perfectly normal to start a professional page for yourself. Think of this like an extension to a website, a music CV or an advertising page. I know it feels a bit cringy and you can go on about why you don't like it, but if you want people to know about you, this is unfortunately the best and easiest way. It probably doesn't even cost you anything other than some time every week in managing this account. You can then use this to connect with other musicians, join any relevant performance groups or associations, or at the very least, you'll be at the back of other people's minds. There are also some musicians who don't like to post what they're doing while in school, especially because they feel that they are still improving and not at a level they are happy with sharing things yet. I think that is slightly misguided, as we forget that whether we are in school or not, we'll always be striving to improve, and we'll never be truly satisfied with our playing. In fact, I dare say that if you can't post something while studying, there's almost no chance you will suddenly wake up one day after leaving school and decide, yay, I'm good enough and I can post now. So while you might not and probably shouldn't post a full concerto of yourself in the first year, I think it's okay to share smaller excerpts of things you are playing or even things you are working on. Sometimes you don't even need to be posting performance videos. Learn to talk to the camera, let your friends know what you are doing. You'll be surprised that there are people who are interested in what you do and what goes on in music school. Also, it's actually much easier to build up a significant online profile while in school because there are just so many more things happening and therefore more things to post about. So don't lose this opportunity. I also like to mention here that social media can make it look like our peers are way ahead of us and that they lead ideal and somewhat perfect lives. But remember, these posts are only a small part of the entire story. Try not to compare and make sure to focus on your own progress and growth. Resist this urge to disconnect from the world, especially when your career doesn't happen immediately. As with all things, we need to find our own balance with this, using social media to market ourselves, but at the same time being careful not to fall into these traps, which can really suck the joy out of our music careers. If you found this video helpful, do remember to give it a like, so hopefully YouTube will share this with more people. Do check out my video on starting a portfolio career in the link here. I think that's one of the best ways to have an effective freelance career. Thanks guys, and I'll see you next time.